This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are continuing with what seems like a theme that has developed over the last couple of episodes of this show, and that is your time. And the more time that you're able to free up for yourself, the more opportunity you have to work on your business instead of in it. And joining us this week is someone who helps business owners tackle these things and several other areas of their business. And that is the CEO of Vibrant Coaching, Nicole Greer. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And hello, everybody out there.
Awesome. So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into business coaching and why is that your passion?
Yeah, so I got into it because I was following somebody that was living the life that I wanted to live. Her name is Lori Beth Jones, and she was a fantastic speaker, writer, coach. And I started following her. And, like a good student, I just started exercising the things that she was doing. And I found myself in business coaching. And I don't know what your story is, John, but when I was very young, I was drawn towards business. I got a job just as fast as I could get one when I was like 15 years old. I was scooping ice cream at the Baskin Robbins. And, today I'm an entrepreneur and I've been in business since 2007. So I think I could attribute it to my grandma Mert. Her name was Myrtle Clara Catherine Charlotte Whitka Pale. This is a woman who is a force to be reckoned with. And she was a little German grandma, and she would play Monopoly with me, and she would play life with me. And so I learned like the game of business through Monopoly, the game of life through playing that with her. And she didn't let me win, so I had to really work hard. So I attribute it all to Grandma Mert.
Awesome. So, our larger topic today is time management, but I know you work a lot on business culture, firm culture. And so I want to save some time to talk about that a little bit towards the end. But
Okay.
when it comes to time management, especially with the business owners that we serve, lawyers, CPAs, financial advisors, a lot of those very entrepreneurial minded types of people, they really struggle with time management. And I think the biggest part of it is because they try to do everything themselves. Why why is that? Is it just kind of how they're wired? Is there like some sort of other psychological thing? Like what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, I think that business owners struggle with time management because they are not in the right mindset. They think that time has mastery over them instead of the fact that they need to have mastery over their time. So, one of the things I think we need to do is we need to give our time intention and attention.
Tell me more. Like, what do you mean by that? It's like, cause I haven't even considered that, in terms of like, being controlled by time instead of having control over it. I had always kind of looked at it as, well, there's only so much amount of time I have in the day, but then here are all the things that I have to do. And
Mhm.
all of the things I have to do are way too much to fit in that what I conceive as a small amount of time. So how are you reframing that?
Yeah, the way I'm reframing it is I invite my business owners to think about having three different kinds of days. So when you sit down to your calendar, and you do need to have a time on your calendar to sit down with your calendar. That's the first step to having mastery over your time is you
Mm,
need to begin. This is an old Stephen Covey thing. Everybody's heard this who's, my age to 30. You have to begin with the end in mind, meaning that I'm going to end my week before it starts. So I'm going to say that again. I'm going to end my week before it starts. So on Friday afternoon, what I invite my business owners to do is somewhere between like 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Okay. Most of your clients don't want to be doing work with you right then. They're gearing up for the weekend. They're slowing down. They're trying to do what they need to do. And I suggest you do the same. So between 2 and 6 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame, you're going to sit down with I call your weekly planner. Now, I'm a big believer in doing everything electronically, but I do have a
mm,
document that I'd be glad to share with everybody called the Vibrant Weekly Planner. And you sit down with pen and paper and you look at your week that's ahead and you write it out with your hand. Now you're thinking, Nicole, really? I'm going to spend time doing that? And the answer is yes. And the reason you're going to do that is because the science says that, writing with your arm, actually writing out what's coming to the week ahead is going to connect that week with your brain, and it's going to cement it in your subconscious. So I'm going to write out, okay, on Monday, I'm doing a training. On Tuesday, I'm doing this. On Wednesday, I'm doing this. And I'm getting that all put in my brain. And don't forget, we're doing this on Friday afternoon. So once I get that all filled in, then I begin to think about what are the major projects that I'm working on. And so on the Vibrant Weekly Planner, there's a list of 10 projects. Now, if you have more than 10 projects, then you're overdone. You need to get help. You need to delegate. So you have 10 major projects that you're working on, or 2 or 1. And you think to yourself, what needs to happen next week to really move this project forward? So what are my 3 goals, or my 1 goal, 1 to 3, that I need to get done this coming week? So you're going to write out, here's my goal. I'm going to get that done for this project. I'm going to make that. I'm going to sit still quietly for 2 hours. If there is a project period that you need, you'll need to go into your calendar, put that in there. I'm going to have 2 hours right here where I have an appointment with myself to get this done. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're planning out your week. Okay. So you sit there, you write all that in there. And there's 3 types of days you need to have in your upcoming week. The first type of day that we need to have is what I call an off day. So you need to have a day off. And I think that's one of the problems with business owners is they're working 7 days a week. They're working night and day, 9 in the morning, 9 at night. And you do need to have a 24-hour period where you put your head on the pillow, you wake up, you don't touch your work, and you put your head on the pillow and you get up, and then you can touch your work again. And the reason we need this is because here's the truth, John, we're human.
Mm-hmm.
We need rest. We need rejuvenation. We need to step away from the business so that we can come back to it fresh. And that's just the humanity that exists inside of all of us. So we've got to step away and get some rejuvenation. So you need to have at least 1 off day, if not 2. If not, you could squeeze 3 out. That would be fantastic because you're going to be so intentional and give attention and intention to your schedule. The next thing that we have is we have a day called an on day. And for the attorneys that listen to your podcast and the business owners that listen to your podcast, there are days where you're in meetings, you're meeting with clients, you're out networking, you're presenting at some kind of event. That's your on day. And so it's kind of like you're the ballerina, you're the person in the Broadway show, and you're showing up and you're like, ta-da! And so that energy is a very high energy output energy where you're just bringing it all day long. And you want to put all the activities of the week you can on that same day, because maintaining that one kind of energy is much easier than moving out of different kinds of energy. So let me tell you about the third day, because it has the other type of energy. And that is what I call an end day, I-N, end day. An end day is where you say, I'm going to go in my office. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to clean up my piles, my files, my voicemail. I am going to go through the mail. I'm going to work on this project between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. because that's my best energy. Or I'm going to work on this project between 3 and 5 because I'm an afternoon person. And you set up that day where you don't have a lot of interruptions, where you've got to turn on your extemporaneous, your outward extroverted energy, right? And you are quiet and you're getting things done. So there's those 3 different kinds of energies. 1, I'm off, I'm playing, I'm resting, I'm relaxing. 1 is I'm on stage, I'm making it happen. And the third energy is I've got my head down and I am preparing for the on days. I'm preparing, I'm selling, I'm marketing, I am working with clients. So you want to separate those days.
Yeah, it's interesting. And just going back through some of the things you said, I like the 10 projects thing was very interesting to me because as soon as you said that, I heard this voice in the back of my head. It's like I have 10, 15 cases alone that I'm constantly working on,
Yeah.
plus bookkeeping, plus marketing, plus other office administrative stuff. So, so that was, I was really glad to hear you say that because I think that really, once you lay it out for people like that and really help them see how many different, kind of plates they're juggling at the same time, it really does make a good case to like, hey, you're doing way too much and you really need to either get some help or at least at the very least organize it in a very, very clear way.
That's right. That's right. Well, you were talking about the different hats that business owners have to wear. They have to wear the
Yeah.
chief marketing officer hat, the chief human resources officer hat, all the different hats that we have to wear. And I would just plug a very good book that's been around for, I think it's since the late 80s. Is a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. And I bet you've read it.
Hmm.
He has many variations. All of them are terrific. But if you've never read one of those books back in the 80s, early 90s, people who ascribed to Michael Gerber's way of thinking were called the Gerber babies. So I would totally suggest that's a classic. Get it on your shelf and read it. But in that book, he talks about how many of us started our business because we love the work we do. So, like, in my case, I started my business because I love helping people build a vibrant culture of people who are happy and do what they love. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, I'm living and doing what I love. I assume that most of the people that are out there that are doing the work in law is that they have like this big desire for justice to be served. They want people to be protected. They want wrongs righted, and
Yeah.
they want those things to happen. And so you want to maintain a certain level where you're getting to do the work that you love, and you don't slip into all these other positions or put on all these other hats all the time, and you find yourself not doing the work that you decided to do in the first place. So you need to have what Dan Sullivan calls, and he is a very famous coach that's out there. Look him up, everybody. But Dan Sullivan, he talks about how you've got to figure out who can help you, not how to do it.
Yeah. And by the way, Michael Gerber, former guest on Center Stage, I think he's back on episode 55. So if you have
Fantastic.
not checked that episode out, I highly encourage everyone to go back and listen to that because it was a really, really great episode.
I know that's
Um,
right.
oh yeah. And so, you talk about the passion and the thing for what you do. And I really do resonate with that because, I think a lot of lawyers and CPAs and those, professional services people, they are that highly analytical, very down in the weeds, really focused on doing their work. And so when they go out on their own, they start their own business. A lot of them, they aren't as naturally equipped, I think, to handle the other noise of marketing, finances, bookkeeping, all that kind of stuff. And so I think, for me, I think it's all about delegation, right? Like focus on doing the things that you enjoy doing the most and then delegate out the rest. And so, I want to get your thoughts on that, in terms of delegation almost as a time management tool to
Mhm.
where, if you can eliminate all of that extra noise and offload it to either someone you hire or vendors that you work with or whatever the case is, you know, but still being able to maintain that control because I do believe that's the other aspect of it. I think a lot of business owners, they want to still, they're reluctant to give up that control because they still want their fingerprints on it, even though they don't necessarily like doing it. They want to still do it their way. So, what have you
Sure.
seen? Yeah, what have you seen in your experience with that regard? And like, what do you recommend to people when they're trying to initially let go of things and kind of ease into it and kind of, maybe not even necessarily give up that control, but still delegate things out to where they're not having to deal with it that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing that I would suggest that they do is number one, is make a job description for that delegation.
Mm,
So whatever that delegation is, and as we're talking about this, I'm thinking of something that I literally hand off to somebody and I say, you handle this for me. Okay, that you do it and then
Yeah.
bring, and then there'll be a level of accountability where you bring it back to me. Okay. So there is a wonderful tool. It's called an impact filter. And one of the things that you can do is you sit down and you say, what is the purpose of this delegation? Like why am I asking you to do it? Oftentimes we don't communicate as business leaders to the person we're delegating to why this needs to be done, why it's imperative, why it's important. So get really clear in your own mind why it's important, and then write it all out. Okay. And then this will eventually be added as like an addendum to the person's job description. You can
Mhm.
add delegations and increase somebody's job responsibilities during their time that they work with you. So
Yeah.
you put in there the why we're doing it. Okay. And then I love this question on the impact filter. It says, what is the biggest difference this will make in the company having you do this? Well, one, you actually have the skills to do this, the unique ability to do this, where I don't. I'm an attorney. I am not, the finance person.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
delegate it to you so that I can get accurate reports, insightful commentary from you, and I can have it delivered to me on the same day every month without me having to generate one thing or press one button or deposit one check. I
Yeah.
need you to deliver this to me, and it will give your leader peace of mind. And that is what I need from you, right? So you're
Yeah.
telling people, listen, help a girl out, get this to me
Right.
and help me have peace of mind. All right. Now, what you do is you list 10 things that have to be true for this to be done well. So if somebody's going to do my financial reports for me, what needs to be true for this to be done well is it needs to be delivered to me on the 5th day of the month for the previous month. It needs
Mhm.
to include this data. It needs to be in this format. You and I need to have a 30-minute conversation that's on our calendar about it. It
Mhm.
has to be accurate. You have to advise me on next right steps. You have to coach me to understand, whatever the things are that you want from the person that you're delegating it to. So
Yeah.
two things happen. You get very clear about what the outcome's going to be, and your kind of question was like, how do people like get their little fingers off of this responsibility? If I can think through the beauty of getting it off my list and what could be true about my future, I'm more likely to let go. And
Mhm.
at the same time, the person I'm delegating it to is very excited because I'm casting a little vision for them, which is what leaders are really supposed to do. Here's what our future is going to look like together. Now, the
Yeah.
last thing I'll say about delegation is there's kind of this weird thing out there, John, in businesses and organizations that I work inside. And it's like everybody's so pushed to shove, everybody's overwhelmed. Like people are talking like that. So it's almost becoming true, even though
Mhm.
it may not be true.
Right.
Because here's what we leaders need to understand. People have amazing, untapped potential.
Mhm.
And when you delegate to them and empower them, you pull out that potential. And that is really what leaders are supposed to be doing is getting people to rise to their highest and best performances. And so with a well executed impact filter, this is how you can impact your own career. I'm going to put this in your plate and you're going to learn it and you're going to be amazing. And you can put that on your resume. And also it's going to help my business. You're going to help your leader. We're going to be partners. We're going to create trust. It's going to be amazing. So I think it's about tying in what's in it for the person you're delegating it to in terms of growing them, and then getting very clear about how you want it to look. Oftentimes we delegate and hope for the best, but with this impact filter, you're filling in all the details. The final thing I'll say about the impact filter is at the bottom, it says, what is the best thing that could come out of this delegation? And what is the worst thing that could come out of this
Mhm.
delegation? So when you put both of those things there, the first one says, here's how you're telling your person, this is how you can be a success. And then
Yeah.
you can say, but if you don't do this correctly, here's what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So you're showing people, here's the best scenario, here's the worst scenario. I believe in you. Let's do our best.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, again, what your story is, but my story was I had only a few leaders in my whole career that kept coming to me going, I want you to do this for me. I know you can
Mhm.
do it. And I was like, okay. I mean, I never was that person that thought another thing, I thought,
Right.
"Oh, she's investing in me. He's investing in me. They see my potential." And so if
Yeah.
we have kind of that conversation about potential versus overwork and overwhelm, I think we need to kind of shift our mental attitude that way.
Yeah, no, and I really like that you brought that up because I think that there has been this growing narrative, especially with millennials and Gen Z, that we're all lazy, we're all
Oh
entitled,
my
we
God.
don't want to work, and like, sure, there are some people who fit that, absolutely,
Sure.
but in the vast majority of people still want to do a good job.
I
You know,
agree.
they still show up, they still want to succeed, and I think, and we'll get into this in just a second, but I think, what you can do as a leader to show, to cast that vision, to at least just give some direction. Don't, I don't just hire someone and just, say do this. Like, show them where it's going to go, what what everyone's trying to work towards, and people can easily buy into that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll tell you a story just real quick, if I may.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was my first career was in the restaurant business, and what a great place to cut your teeth on business,
Hmm.
right? Like talk about hustle, open all day, all night, So I
Yeah.
worked my panty off in the restaurant business, and I loved it. I had the kind of energy that matched that business. Well, I was working in that business, and a woman came in and ate in the restaurant and observed me, and she gave me her card. She says, "Come work for me." And first of all, don't miss that, everybody. You find
Hmm.
somebody with great energy wherever they are with a good attitude, oh my gosh, you better have this old-fashioned thing called a business card
Right.
and hand it to that person and say, "Will you call me? I love your energy," and get to know that person because uh you never know when you're going to need somebody with those customer service skills or whatever it is. So I was like, kind of a little dumbfounded, and surprised, naive because I was young. And I
Yeah.
called her up and she's, "Hey, have you ever thought about being in property management?" I'm like, "What's that?" And so I went to go work for her. Well, long story short, I was with that company for 15 years. And when I went to go work for her, I mean, I started at the bottom, worked my way all the way up to training and marketing director, in the C-suite. And I worked in Uptown Charlotte, on Tryon Street at the last point of my career. But I wouldn't have got to the home office, to the quote unquote ivory tower, if they wouldn't have said to me over and over, "Hey, we need you to do this little extra." And
Yeah.
I always said yes, because that little extra proved to them we should invest in her some more. And so then they would give me a promotion. And we all know what comes with a promotion typically is a little raise,
Yeah.
right? And so exponentially over the course of my career, I did really, really well. And I think that there are many people who have that character trait of determination, um, and drive and ambition. It's a trait that's inside people. We just gotta go put it to work. And
Yeah.
that's what they did to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think this is a good transition into kind of the culture aspect that I wanted to ask you about, because I think, at least in what I've observed, and please tell me if you've seen something different. I think a lot of the friction that maybe older Gen Xers or the younger boomers now they have with millennials and Gen Zs come from just a difference in emotional intelligence. And so talk for a little bit, like, especially like what you've seen when it comes to how emotional intelligence plays into a business's culture.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely enormous, first of all. So let me lay a little quick foundation. So
Yeah.
emotional intelligence um, is the ability to use emotions the right way the ability to manage your emotions, and the ability to inspire the right emotions in others. So there's really 4 buckets. The first thing anybody has to do is you need to do a self-assessment, like how is my emotional intelligence?
Right.
If you want to take an emotional intelligence assessment, you can email me at Nicole at Vibrant Coaching, and I'll send you a little paper version that won't cost you a penny. Okay, now I have big fancy EQ assessments, if we want to go
Mhm.
that far, and that's perfect too. But if you want to just kind of get close to the idea of emotional intelligence, take this little paper assessment, take you about 15 minutes, and it will help you see that there's 4 aspects. The first aspect is that self-awareness. Okay, do I see that I'm an emotional animal? Do I see that my emotions influence and impact the people around me?
Mhm.
Because hello, they do.
Mm.
I mean, people are like, I'm just going to be quiet today. I'm in a mood. I had, the dog did this, and my daughter's like that, and they come into work and you're down the feeling scale.
Mm.
Uh, people are noticing. Don't think they don't notice.
Oh, so
They
you're saying your team members kind of take after the attitudes that the leaders set?
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to say something very dicey right here. I tell my leaders that I work with, I say, hey guys, we're not allowed to have a bad day. And people are like, what? And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, no, no. Will you have a bad day? The answer is yes. Can you have a bad day in front of everybody? The answer is absolutely not. You
Mm.
cannot do that. I mean, and that's why we get paid more money to manage many people, to be higher and take on more responsibility. This is a more stressful, more easily emotionally hijacked place to be. So you have to have those skills of emotional intelligence so you can remain cool, calm, and collected, motivational, and inspiring. Now,
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day, you separate yourself, you go get yourself together out in the car, you listen to Tony Robbins or whoever, and you get yourself back in there, and you keep working. And that's what we call emotional intelligence, is the ability to work past the troubles, the bad days, and the things like that, and to be able to reframe. So the first thing is self-assessment. The second thing is self-management. So the ability to notice, oh my gosh, I'm in a mood. I better go out to the
Mm.
car, listen to some good music, get myself back in here, to take the steps that you need. So, for example, in the morning, every single morning in my life, I get up very early before everybody else. I sit in a chair and I read very positive, uplifting, motivational material
Mm.
because it sets my brain in place for the day. Okay.
Mm.
And I'm just like everybody else. I got issues, stuff, things going on, but I try to set my mind in place for the day. And oftentimes, if I put that positive inspiration in place, the stuff I thought was a problem, I'm like, that's not even a problem. That'll work out. I'll work on that. I'll go talk to them. It'll all be fine.
Yeah.
So there's self-awareness, self-management. The third thing that we have is we have social awareness. So it is that ability to walk in, read the room, how is John doing right now? Is he okay? I better go check in with him. And
Mm.
it's the ability to care about others. And when you said the difference between the generations, um, we've talked so much about the generations that I think we need to talk about us as the people in the workforce versus keep
Yeah.
separating ourselves from each other.
Yeah.
But the older generation, my generation, needs to care about the younger generation instead of standing in judgment.
Yeah.
And I think the opposite of judgment is love or care. And I really like to live from this place of, how can I just love everybody today so we can get all this work done,
Right.
instead of judging everybody. So there's that social awareness. And finally, there's relationship management. So I'm a huge proponent of this thing called employee performance management, which is a systematic way of sitting with your people during the course of their career and coaching them to
Mm.
pull out that untapped potential. So you've got to be intentional and give attention to the people on your team. Now, here's the thing. I don't care how old you are or how young you are, but if you sit with me, talk with me, teach me, mentor me, tell me all your strategy, systems, and smarts, make me better, odds are I'm going to be grateful. And grateful people work really hard.
Yeah. I agree. And one of the things that really stuck with me, especially is to stop separating, generations by
Oh
judgment.
my gosh,
I think the irony of that is that, the Gen Xers and the boomers who are in charge now, you know 20, 30, 40 years ago were in that same position when the older
100%.
generations were doing the same thing to them. And so it's just kind of, you got to break that cycle and, understand that, people are coming from different places, they don't necessarily have the same exposure to the same things. And so you have an opportunity there to provide value even beyond just a paycheck to someone, and not necessarily manipulate them mentally to be the person you want them to be, but still provide that value and that vision and the direction to help them and put them in the best place to succeed.
Yeah, and I work with all sorts of people in all sorts of places. I work with people in manufacturing. I have an attorney that I work with. I work with people in, food service, all different places. And I was at an engineering firm just like a week ago, and this young man, his name is Jonah, and so he was in my class. We were doing a personality assessment, team building day kind of thing, and he was listening to everything I was saying, and he came up to me and he said, I didn't really think I'd get anything out of this today, but I'm really, enjoying this. I'm liking this. And I'm like, well, that's wonderful, Jonah. And so I didn't stop there. I said, tell me why. How is
Mhm.
this landing? How is this going to help you? So I took my entire break and his entire break of 15 minutes and we chatted. And and here's the thing. This kid could be my child. Okay. I have a 30-year
Mhm.
old. So he was probably 20 something. And so he was just super nice. I said, let's be LinkedIn. He's like, okay. And so we linked in, and now he sends me all these little messages, and I send him little messages, and so it does not matter that I could be his mother. We're relating on all these really cool levels, and one of them is like, he's sending me this video of this Buddhist monk who does meditation, and so I watched it, and so
Yeah.
I sent him back a message. I'm like, that's really cool. Sitting quietly, getting your head together is a great way to be what? Emotionally intelligent, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking with him, and then of course I've got people in my life that I have a lady in my life. Her name's Ann Starrett, and she's in her late 70s, and she is still working in the workplace. And I mean, when I have a problem, I call her up. She's like, "This is what you got to do." I mean, you
Yeah.
need all these different ages and perspectives to make you well-rounded, or otherwise you're going to just be that one little version of yourself. You
Mhm.
got to pull from whoever you can. I'm learning from Jonah. I'm learning from Ann.
Right. Yeah, there's never an end point to it, right? There's
Right.
always,
Right.
I think we've kind of gotten to a place in society where we always think we're just trying to go from point A to point B, and there's really no point B. You just start at point A when you're born and you just go until you're dead. And there's no there's no reaching, there's no perfection or anything. There's always just little things that you could be doing and learning along the way. And so, I really do appreciate that. Tell people how they can get in touch with you. I know you have a ton of different resources that you can provide to help people out. And so where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show, John. I'm grateful and for this opportunity. So, simplest way to find me is go to www.buildavibrantculture.com and I'll be right there. All sorts of downloadable things there. And of course, my phone number's right on there. Pick up the phone and call me. I am a Gen X. I like the telephone, so call me. I would love to talk to you. And then, of course, I am over on LinkedIn. So just type in Nicole Greer, Nicolegr, two E's R, Greer, and I'll pop right up. And I'd love to be LinkedIn with you. And you and I can hang out like me and Jonah, sending each other messages back and forth.
Awesome. Love it. So, one final question for you before we wrap up here. And that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
Yeah. My final piece of advice for your listeners would be to give people a lot of positive feedback in the right way. So,
Mhm.
real quickly, I'm going to give you a formula. It's called a C3. So, if you had a pencil, you'd write down C, C, C going up and down vertically. And you want to have your first C be circumstances. The second C would be conduct. And then the third C would be consequences. If you really want to build a vibrant culture and get people what I call lit, most people want to get lit. They want to be alive, love their work, enjoy what they're doing, be on fire. People are looking for that, especially the Gen Zs and the millennials. They want serious purpose in their work.
Mhm.
So what leaders need to do is a very old thing called catch people doing things right. Now that comes from a little book by Ken Blanchard called The 1 Minute Manager. It's also a classic. Buy it, read it. You could read it in 2 hours. So in his book, he talks about catching people doing things right by managing by walking around. And so you got to get out and get with your people. Your people are starving for your intention and your attention. So be very intentional about the C3. So if I was going to give a C3 to John, this is what I would do. I would say, John, we just spent over a half an hour together talking about building a vibrant culture on your podcast. So there's the circumstances. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. And here's the thing, when you give feedback, you have to paint a little picture so people go, oh, is that what he's talking about? Dial it in for people. The next thing you do, you talk about the quality of their conduct or their behavior or their character. John, you've been patient, you've been attentive, you've been a great listener, and you've allowed me to share the thing that I love the most. So I feel like I've really been on purpose. And then the third thing is consequences. And consequently, I'm going to share this podcast all over social media, and I'm going to drive people over to you and tell them about your marketing services. I'm grateful for you. Now, that is a beautiful piece of feedback because he knows exactly when it happened. I'm telling him exactly what I loved. Now, if you did that for an employee, you would get more of that from the employee.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell people what you want more of. And they, if they feel appreciated, they will be engaged. You know, this employee engagement thing, everybody's talking about it. That's the ticket right there. Catch people doing things right, celebrate it, give them a celebratory C3, and just watch them walk around doing some seriously good work. That's what will happen, I promise.
Yeah, no, I really like that because I think, I think a lot of leaders might feel like just saying, "Hey, good job," and then that's it.
Oh yeah, that's not good. Don't do that.
That could be enough. And, eventually, like, you just say good job enough, like, eventually, like, it loses some sense. But when you're specific about it and really intentional, it does, I say it comes across more heartfelt, but because it is, you are taking the time to be specific about it. And so, I really love that. It's a really good nugget to end on here. That's going to do it for us here this week. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Please leave a rating and review wherever you are listening to the show. It does help get the show out in front of more people, so people like Nicole can get their insight and share their expertise with more people like you. So please do so if you have not done so yet. And that's going to do it. Nicole, thanks so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.